Hello everybody, and welcome to the Faculty and Staff Training on Disability Resource Services. My name is Brad Baranowski, and I'm a Senior Disability Resource Specialist or Liaison with Madison College, and also a former instructor. What I'd like to talk to you a little bit about today is a little bit about DRS, the background, some top things to know, which I'll spend most of our time on, a little bit about our deaf and hard of hearing guide and community, and a little bit on universal design. But please, before we get started, on the bottom right of this YouTube video, please turn on your caption functioning so I can model the captioning and universal design of this video. First, as a general introduction, take a moment to review our website, particularly the part of the website that has to deal with faculty and staff. And also you could take a moment to look at our team on the DRS website. A little bit of background. Of course, we're serving more and more students with disabilities as they're graduating more and more from high school, and more are attending college. This is particularly important for us in the two-year institution or technical college setting, when nearly 30% of those are attending college. About 71% of those students are disclosing their disability to DRS staff on campus. Over 1,300 students with disabilities last academic year. The majority of those students have some form of learning disability or psychiatric disability. Our mission is to create learning conditions that empower and support students with disabilities to reach their chosen goals. We have a number of laws that support that. Section 504 of the 73 Rehabilitation Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. These protect individuals with disabilities from discrimination, and the key point, ensure access, full access to all activities and programs at Madison College. The Americans with Disabilities Act, as amended of 2008, expanded the scope of what is considered a disability, and thus why we're seeing more and more students with disabilities in our classrooms. Take a look at our webpage discussing laws and policies that support our program. We also have policies regarding non-discrimination for individuals with disabilities at the college, and this not only supports our students, but it also supports our staff. So what happens is a student meets with us, they provide us with written documentation of their disabilities. They're the one kind of driving this process. We as DRS staff review this information, and we interview the student, and we are the ones that determine what are reasonable accommodations. And then we create an accommodation plan. This accommodation plan they must show you and discuss with you to be able to get those accommodations. Here's an example of an accommodation card. The picture is a little blurry, my apologies. But here's an example of what you might receive from a student. It'll talk about their information, and any of the accommodations that are listed, we would check or initial those. Any other special considerations we would want to add to the classroom. And of course, it would have to be signed and dated for it to be official. And so any accommodation will vary with every student. So what works for one student may not work with another student of the same disability. So if you're working with somebody with a learning disability, it may affect each of them differently, or depression, or whatever it might be. So of course what DRS provides is we provide ongoing support, case management, advising, information and referral, and of course advocacy. The accommodations you might see on those plans include things like providing assistive technology, provided accommodated testing, alternative text, note-taking, interpretation, captioning, and other special considerations or learning needs like special needs instruction or tutoring, and flexible attendance. And of course, we work with all of our students to address readiness issues, which we know is an important issue for instructors. And so a key thing that we address are differences between high school and college before you meet them. This is sometimes ongoing. Okay, some top things we want you to know. We want you to know about our partnership. We want you to know when to accommodate, or later what not to do. What you tell students or what students tell you. Information related to text and media, note takers, testing accommodations, etc. So number one, providing reasonable accommodations for students with disabilities is a partnership between all of us, between the student, between yourself as faculty, and between us as DRS staff members. We can, of course, provide ideas how to implement those accommodations. We're the ones that determine what those reasonable accommodations are, and of course your job is to implement those in the classroom. Please do not provide any accommodations to any student who does not show you an accommodation plan or accommodation card signed by us. I mentioned that earlier. We'll talk a little bit more about what not to do a little bit later. Students must disclose to you and to us that they have a disability, how it affects them, and the types of accommodations they may need. They are not required to disclose the specific nature of their disability to you. All disability information must be considered confidential unless a student has given you express permission to share this. Regarding text and media, if a student requires text and other instructional materials in alternate formats like Braille or audio formats, it can take a while for us to produce this. So the sooner you identify those materials, the sooner we can get converting those. And also when preparing or ordering new multimedia materials, be sure that they are captioned. Captioning is really important, and having things captioned, especially for students with hearing difficulties, is the law. So we have a web page that you can access that helps you get things captioned that may not be captioned. But I want to discuss the role of captioning as, if we have visual and auditory stimuli in the learning process, of course that's going to increase neuroplasticity. Of course that's going to increase neurodevelopment. There's quite a bit of research on this. So it's also a very good learning tool as well in using captioning. Related, guidelines for technology access. Make sure we use hardware and software products that promote universal design and disability access. Design and implement digital technologies in instructional and work environments that accommodate all users. Use and purchase multimedia and video materials that are accessible, that they're captioned, they have high contrast, they're large print, they're clear and readable. Follow the federal 508 standards in regards to web accessibility. So create internal and external web pages that also improve accessibility for all, including those with disabilities. We have a web page on that as well, so take a moment to review those. Strive to use concepts of universal design when purchasing, developing, and updating informational technology, instructional media, etc. If you don't know if it's accessible, do a little bit of research and find out if it is. If it isn't, please don't use it. Additionally, one of the top services we provide is the note-taking services. And we rely on faculty to help us locate note takers or to get notes in general. So discuss with the student how to best fulfill this. In general, we have a couple of options. Identify a student in the class to take notes. Our student will fill out an online form. That online form, you'll get a copy of that form in which you have to fill out a separate online form to be able to identify that particular student. And so what happens is that student who volunteers is given a gift card to the bookstore if they are able to complete that process. Or you could provide the student with a copy of your own lecture notes. However, we won't compensate you with that gift card though. Sorry about that. Testing accommodations, also a very popular service. And so again, similar to before, student must fill out a form. You'll get an email indicating that there's a form that you'll need to fill out. You'll need to attach those exams and any directions related to that. And so a student must fill that out 5 days before the test, and you will need to respond within 24 hours of that test to make sure that that gets facilitated. So some things and what not to do, things that are not reasonable accommodations, fundamentally altering the type of class and how it's delivered, or eliminating essential functions, and this is important for the health field, the training in the health field. Reduced assignments, accommodations that might pose threats or even individuals that would pose threats to safety or health, and so still follow any codes of conduct. Modified curriculum, modified grading, notes for all tests, retaking exams, extended time on assignments, modified assignments, or provision of one-to-one aids. These things are beyond reasonable and therefore should not be provided to support our students. Additionally, there's a guide that explains the process for helping students who have hearing difficulties in the deaf or hard of hearing communities. You'll receive this guide if you are working with a student with hearing difficulties. Our interpreter coordinator, Jenna, will email this to you, but some highlights of what it discusses are kind of how the process works with working with interpreters and the role of interpreter in the classroom and testing and all of that. But some key highlights from this guide relate to processing and using captions. So please recognize that there's a processing delay of about 5 to 10 seconds between what you say and the time in which an interpreter might sign something to a student. So this has significant implications with interactive classrooms or classroom participation. So please allow the necessary time for your statement to be interpreted before calling on students. So this will provide equal opportunity for deaf and hard of hearing students to participate. And additionally, of course, check any media, as we've mentioned before, that you use to make sure that they're captioned or that they can be captioned. They must be captioned. This is, again, the law. The auto generation caption for YouTube videos don't necessarily work as well. They're very, very poor quality. So be careful when you choose YouTube videos. I've actually uploaded a transcription of this particular YouTube video to make sure that this works properly. If you do come across something that's not accessible, consider replacing it with something already captioned, or contact your central office to assist you with captioning. And again, we have that link that I showed you earlier for captions. And lastly, universal design. Make sure everything is accessible, including the syllabus. And please make sure that you include this syllabus statement or this disability statement on your syllabus. You can copy it right from here, or you can copy it from the syllabus template that's on our Madison College webpage. And when you're designing your instruction, make sure that you implement universal design. Things like posting class notes prior to class, consider on-time tests, or use, again, only accessible media. And what we mean by universal design is your instruction has multiple means of representation, your instruction has multiple means of action and expression, and your instruction has multiple means of engagement to reach all of our learners. Please take a moment to review this particular website, a wonderful website that gives you some ideas that explains universal design more and some ideas on how to implement universal design. Here's a view of that particular web page. So again, talks about the goal and the process and the practices, and then some examples for each of the things that you might do and how you might implement universal design in your classroom. And related to that is accessibility. So whether we're talking about instructional materials, you're actually talking about the accessibility of your materials, your books, and even the room. Consider light, sound, visual representation, and physical layout. All of this goes hand in hand with universal design instruction. And please keep in mind that I tried to model this with this video. So it's captioned. The PowerPoint is in high contrast, which black on white is most common. It's large, mostly easy to read, and mostly clear and thoughtful layout. There's not a lot of pictures, as you notice, because that could make it difficult for a number of reasons. So please only use pictures that support the content in a meaningful way. And so again, we talked about the background and why we're here and who we serve. I spent most of our time talking about the top things to know. I talked about the deaf and hard of hearing guide, universal design, etc. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about how to do this or how to work in this partnership, please contact us. And of course, the Wisconsin Technical College System has a wonderful webpage of resources for students with disabilities, serving students with disabilities as well. Thank you very much for your partnership.